As soon as the day started, the air was charged with tension, the storm just ready to erupt. For the Sister Wives fans, the impending wedding of none other than Janelle Brown had been eagerly anticipated in the preceding weeks. It had all the makings of a perfect celebration of love and family, maybe even a few surprises along the way. However, what none of them could have prepared themselves for was the shocking twist that would rock the entire Brown family and their fans in equal measure. Kody Brown, the leader of the family, the one around whom the entire family revolved, had been blacklisted from his own wife's wedding. Yes, banned. That one word was sufficient to send hearts aching and tongues agape. How could a husband and a father, a vital part of the polygamist family saga that the viewers had eagerly followed for over a decade, be disallowed from entering a wedding that was intended to be a celebration of one of the women he held dear? This question would be answered, and the reason would be seen as much more than a simple case of one wronged action, as the answer would be rooted in the culmination of the tension that had built up over the years. It was an electric morning at the wedding. The sun shone brightly in the sky, casting its golden rays on the white roses and beautifully set tables at the picturesque venue. The guests had come dressed to the nines, preparing to witness what, for them, was supposed to be a heartwarming and joyful occasion. But the atmosphere, despite the warmth of the sunshine, was thick with anticipation, unfavorable anticipation, at that. Hushed whispers spread throughout the gathering, letting everyone know that Kody would not be attending the ceremony. Janelle, dressed magnificently in her gown, walked with elegance and poise. She smiled and took photos, acting as if nothing were wrong. However, sources disclosed that keeping Kody from attending the wedding had been intentional and strategic, making it all about Janelle and what she wanted. Janelle had been recognized all these years as the kind and funny one, the one who could deal well with what life had given her, which was life with polygamists. Behind Janelle's composed face, however, was a strong woman ready to take hold of her own destiny, and the wedding offered the opportune timing. The reaction of the other guests was immediate. While some were shocked and disbelieving, realizing that Kody, who had been considered the glue holding this family together, was being left out, others were talking excitedly, realizing that this was only a symbol of what was to come. The core four was already being referred to before the wedding could take place, symbolizing the women who had taken control of family decisions and family dynamics. Clearly, Janelle was ready to join this group, maybe lead it. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere was even more tense. Wedding planners and staff worked doubly hard to ensure that the ceremony stayed on track, while knowing that they were under the scrutiny of cameras and observing fans. Each and every detail had to be attended to with care in order to steer the situation that might have potentially continued to escalate further. While the cameras rolled, the smiles, the laughter, and the promises of matrimony, they did not and could not capture the mood of drama that pervaded the room. Kody's presence was obviously missing. Historically, the presence of the patriarch at family gatherings had always been one of the foundations of Sister Wives. Kody had always been the one around whom the celebrations would revolve. His approval and participation had always been imperative. Not this time. This time, all had changed. The mere fact of excluding him from the wedding ceremony had made a strong statement to Kody, to say the least. Social media went crazy in just a few hours. Fans flooded Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with video clips, screenshots, and speculations about Kody's absence. Reactions ranged from disbelief to frustration, and others praising Janelle for finally putting herself first and making a point. "I just can't believe that Kody wasn't there," to finally, "Janelle is taking control of her life," showed the split reactions from the fans. Just like the dynamics in their family had split into both sides, divided between the devoted fans of Kody and the interested onlookers in the Core 4 quartet. But what had caused this sudden change of circumstances? It was reported by people close to the family that there have been underlying tensions within the family for several months or perhaps years. Disparities of opinion, financial arguments, child-rearing, and even the minutest details of their day-to-day living had created cracks in the family foundation. The core four have brought themselves into alignment, and they have created a support system in which more value was placed on cooperation rather than on submitting to the lead of Kody. The wedding of Janelle turned out to be a battleground for this struggle for power. All the arrangements, right from the seating to the invitees, were a manifestation of their pre-planned strategy and also a declaration of their freedom. Excluding Kody from the wedding, whether intentional or unintentional, meant something about Janelle's declaration of living her day the way she wanted to, and this message was well received by everybody in the room. The absence of the patriarch, coupled with the oneness of the core four, made for a setting full of tension, drama, and interest. And this is what Sister Wives fans love to see. Photographers and video crews recorded all of this action. Bridesmaids were whispering to each other, trying to handle this situation discreetly. Family members were casting knowing glances at each other, with some of them supportive and some of them confused. Even the officiant is said to have been affected by this situation, handling it with care in order to ensure the ceremony stayed on schedule. Despite this, Janelle displayed grace and composure. Armchair psychologists abound, and Kody's response to this situation was no exception. Some viewers pictured him pacing and frowning, torn between honoring Janelle's wishes and stung by her snubbing him in the process. Others pictured him torn between annoyance and shock as he realized that he no longer ran the family, but they were moving full steam ahead anyway. Meanwhile, the core four were in full concert, their might and majesty palpable as they planned and directed every detail of this day. Even the vows at the wedding, Rachel reflected with a smile, though sweet and heartfelt, contained a message of female empowerment. Love, Janelle said. Strength, independence, and a path followed to reach this moment. Many of their fans through the years will recognize the difference and appreciate what this wedding represents. It is a statement. Love is a many-splendored thing, and love is what filled the little church. It was a bright and beautiful day, Rachel continued. The sky was a brilliant blue, Rachel described. It became very clear by the end of the day that Janelle's wedding had not only shocked television viewers, but had also changed the dynamics of the Brown family. The lack of Kody's presence was not merely the absence of a seating arrangement, but a representation of a shift in power dynamics that would be discussed amongst fans for many months to come. The core four dynamic had been solidified, and Janelle had shown that she had no issue standing center stage and taking control of her life and love without needing Kody's representation. In the realm of sister wives, your drama, emotions, and politics among families are involved. Janelle Brown's wedding is one that will be etched in history as one of the most memorable moments in this show ever. It was a day filled with all things beautiful, all things love, all things tradition, but it was also a day that signified a shift in power, the beginning of the core four. And one thing is clear, the Brown family is changing in ways unknown, even to fans. As the end of the ceremony drew near and guests began filing out, social media chatter continued. Speculation on what's next raged on. How will Kody react? Will the core four solidify further control? More importantly, what will this mean for the rest of these family celebrations on the horizon? One thing is certain, however. The wedding of Janelle is far more than just a celebration. It is an announcement. In the world of sister wives, announcements such as these tend never to be easily erased. When it was realized that Kody Brown would not be attending Janelle's wedding, the sister wives universe was in a state of shock and awe. It wasn't some small family feud or occasion missed. It was a structural shift in the dynamics of a family that had been followed for well over a decade. Kody, long the centerpiece of the Brown family, was now excluded from one of the most pivotal moments of his own household. This absence was not an empty gesture, but was symbolic of much-needed meaning about how the structure of the family was changing, and just how hard the wives were beginning to fight back. Kody's position as patriarch has always been at the center of the family storyline. From keeping finances to making household decisions, he was seen as an anchor who kept those connected multi-households in one circle. His presence at major family events, including weddings, birthdays, and holidays, was always unquestioned. Viewers had grown so used to him organizing the family get-togethers, mediating disputes, and being that figure around whom all decisions revolved. At Janelle's wedding, however, that centrality was completely disrupted. Many assumed this and asked, where was Kody? Was this his choice, the result of friction with Janelle or one of the other wives, or a Machiavellian play engineered by the core four, the four wives who've increasingly taken the reins on family decisions? According to insiders, the truth is a little bit of all of the above. Kody's absence speaks to a growing trend in the Brown family. The wives don't continue to heed Kody's word as gospel. Accordingly, Robin, Mary, Christine, and now Janelle herself have formed a controlling core four in which major decisions within the family are gradually consolidated. Such a union became the perfect avenue to showcase this shift. Everything from the seating chart to the flow of the ceremony was an act of calculated planning, obviously intended to minimize Kody's involvement. By stepping back or being intentionally excluded, Kody was forced to face a new reality he had never experienced before. His absolute authority was no longer law. Viewers who have followed the show closely know that Kody's relationships with his spouses have always been quite complicated. Throughout the seasons, tensions and disagreements arise over money, raising children, household responsibilities, and even personal autonomy. Many of these disputes are behind the scenes and not fully caught on camera. These stem from the internal dynamics of the family. Janelle's wedding was the public representation of those private tensions, and it made Kody's lack of attendance very public, visible proof of shifting power structures. This wedding is just the beginning of the core four's influence. Robin has emerged as a strategic leader, often behind the scenes, mediating and making necessary decisions. Christine's charisma can sometimes inspire support and move events in directions even Kody struggles to resist. Mary was quiet for so long, but she has become bolder over time, stating her opinions and assuming leadership positions that nobody would have previously expected of her. And through their actions at the wedding, Janelle made it crystal clear. She is ready to assert her independence. It was not just a celebration of marriage, but rather a venue for symbolic battles in terms of control and influence within the family. Not having Kody attend was not just an act of defiance, but a statement about autonomy, independence, and shifting power. By allowing or orchestrating Kody's absence, the wives proved to show that they no longer needed to operate under his ever-watchful eye. Reactions among the series fans were immediate and varied. Some acts of outrage, defending Kody and saying a patriarch not being invited to a wedding is just not fathomable. Others celebrated this as a moment of change, praising Janelle and the core four for finally putting their own voices and desires first. Social media blew up with commentary, clips from the wedding, images of the empty seat that Kody would have sat in, and discussions on how this would impact the future dynamics of the family. For many, this no longer had anything to do with love, but was about power, influence, and the subtle politics of polygamy. Insiders close to the family say that this was also a personal pivotal moment for Kody. A man used to being at the center of important family decisions, Kody reportedly felt frustrated, disappointed, and maybe even betrayed. Though it wasn't all captured on camera, according to production notes, he was at least passingly aware of how subtly the Core Four had maneuvered the wedding to their advantage. Being so publicly sidelined may have been an especially humbling experience that finally made Kody reassess his role in the family and how he was going to cope with this new era of wife-led decision-making. The Core Four managed the wedding down to every last detail, from invitations to flowers to the order of speeches. The planning was minute and the execution flawless, even without the family patriarch. The attention to detail and cohesion of the four wives did not go unnoticed by guests, and even the most casual viewer could feel the dynamic shift in this new family hierarchy. With every action, each of them spoke volumes. This family is changing, and Kody's voice is no longer the loudest anymore. This, psychologically, is a very interesting moment. In polygamist families, the dynamics of power are very sensitive to tradition, individual autonomy, and collective decision-making. Kody's absence shows a shift from patriarchal authority to one that is much more decentralized, wife-centered decision-making. It is a public manifestation that the wives can handle big events themselves, and that the family can function without Kody at the center of all major milestones. The wedding was also a public signal to fans and critics alike. By excluding Kody or diminishing his role, the Core Four made it clear that women's voices in the Brown family are stronger and more powerful than ever before. For longtime viewers, it was both a shock and a moment of feminism. The story of the patrician-led family is being rewritten with a new model: collaboration, strategy, and women having the reins. This shift has greater ramifications on the future of the family. The questioning of Kody's traditional role as patriarch and the growing influence of the Core Four give reason to believe that future family events, holidays, and decisions may increasingly fall under this new framework. The question for viewers becomes, will Kody try to regain his power, or will the wives continue to build their strength? How does this shift affect the relationships among the wives, and how will the children and other family members adjust to the new composition? At once, Kody's absence at Janelle's wedding is far more than a melodramatic moment of television. It is a casebook study in the evolving dynamics of family, personal empowerment, and subtle yet profound shifts that occur when long-standing authority is brought into question. The wedding as event confronted the family and the fans with difficult, testing questions regarding leadership, autonomy, and the shifting positions of each member within a complex, multi-layered household. The emotional impact is not to be underestimated. Guests reported the atmosphere as being tense and celebratory, all a paradox that perfectly encapsulates the event's duality. The happiness and independence of Janelle were tangible, but so too was the undercurrent of tension created by Kody's absence. This strange combination of elation and conflict made the wedding easily one of the most unforgettable and life-altering moments in Sister Wives history. In the end, Kody's absence was a point both literal and symbolic, revealing fissures in this family's traditional structure, highlighting the rising influence of the Core Four, and showing that the wives were no longer willing to operate solely under the patriarch's guidance. The moment was dramatic, intriguing, and deeply reflective for fans about the nature of the Brown family and how it was changing. With the ceremony over, the conversation didn't stop, on social media or in comments anywhere, with speculations, arguments, and praises abounding. Comments have shown the wives' empowerment, Janelle's bold decisions, and there was one undeniable fact: the role of Kody within the hierarchy has been altered. This wasn't just a marriage. This was a public declaration of a transitioning family, of a modern patriarch under question, and of the rise of a new era of influence of the core four. The story of Kody's absence and what it means will continue to be scrutinized for years to come by both fans and critics in general. It is a defining moment that shows the maneuvering around the complexities of polygamist life, the fine line drawn between authority and autonomy, and the emotional repercussions of shifting family power dynamics. Kody might have been physically absent, but his presence, or rather, the loss of it, was stronger than ever. In other words, Kody's absence from Janelle's wedding is not just an absence. It is a symbolic pivot point. It seals the rise of the wives' autonomy, the cementing of the core four's influence, and the falling into place of the Brown family in a new era. Viewers will remember this moment not just for its shocking twist, but as a turning point in the ongoing drama, intrigue, and power struggle in Sister Wives. Janelle Brown's wedding was more than a love celebration. It was a stage for an unmistakable shift in the Brown family hierarchy. Where fans were earlier misled by the shock of Kody Brown's banning, the actual story was right there before everybody's eyes: the rise of the core four. These four wives, Robyn, Meri, Christine, and Janelle herself, have gradually gained influence, placing themselves strategically as the new decision-makers in the family. And the wedding did justice to being the ultimate stage that exposed their power and authority. For years, Kody had been considered the pivot point of the family. The holidays were coordinated around his likes and dislikes. Big family decisions were based on his input, and even the overall household structure was designed for him. His wives and children were divided among a series of homes in suburban Las Vegas, and he moved from house to house. The wives, though integral parts of the family, often ceded to Kody's decisions and balanced their own desires against their patriarch's needs. But quietly, the dynamics were shifting. Robyn, Meri, Christine, and Janelle began to forge a tactical partnership, aligning their decisions toward common priorities. And with time, this partnership had started to grow stronger, more cohesive, and perhaps most importantly, more influential. The wedding marked the first unmistakable public display of their unity and of their control. Among them, Robyn stands out as the most influential. She's strategic, observant, and has learned to navigate both interpersonal dynamics and logistics. Over time, Robyn has established a role for herself as mediator, sometimes filling in the gaps between wives, while nudgefully guiding the trajectory of family decisions. At Janelle's wedding, she played a part in organizing the ceremony, guiding the arc of the day, making sure it represented them, the core four. Another important role was played by Christine, being charismatic and persuasive. She is good at mobilizing support for her cause and influencing other people's opinions to her advantage. During the wedding, Christine commanded attention from where she sat, as certain decisions on seating, speeches, and who spoke to whom were left to her, a skill that has cemented her place in this family. Meri, too, has been quieter in the past and less involved in the everyday logistics of family life. She, too, has become bolder in recent months. The wedding showcased this new confidence. She weighed in on important decisions, she instructed staff, and subtly made sure Kody's influence stayed at a minimum. Her transformation from passive participant to active decision-maker underlines the core four's strategy. Collaboration, coordination, not confrontation, is the route to influence for them. And then there is Janelle, the bride. For years, she has been loved for her humor, warmth, and nurturing personality. But at her wedding, she showed another side, one of independence, assertiveness, and strategic awareness. More than a personal decision, Janelle's act of moving forward without Kody physically present was a symbolic assertion of autonomy. Clearly, she had aligned herself with the core four, embracing the power in collaboration, and showing that she was ready to stand as an equal, not just be a wife within Kody's world. At first, the core four was a fan rumor, then a term. This wedding made it undeniable fact. From structure to speeches to subtle choreography of guest interchange. Every facet of this event was hewn from their influence. Nothing wasn't planned. It became obvious that the core four weren't operating behind the scenes anymore. They were running the show. This was news to those who have watched Sister Wives for any number of years. The show often centers Kody, but in reality, much of the household's day-to-day management and most family coordination has fallen increasingly to the wives. The wedding provided tangible evidence of this evolution. Careful planning, a unified vision, and assertive execution by the core four showed that the dynamic within the family had shifted. Kody's decisions were no longer absolute, and the wives' influence was now front and center. But the strategic elements of the wedding also showed just how insidious and calculated the core four's approach can be. Seating was arranged to underscore the wives' solidarity with one another, downplaying their connective relationship to Kody. Speeches were directed to carry declarations of empowerment, autonomy, and self-improvement, coupled with respect for family tradition. Even the most minute details, floral arrangements, table settings, and guest interactions were premeditated to reflect the core four's vision. These were subtle cues that fans picked up rather quickly, and soon, frame-by-frame dissections hit social media. Discussions ranged from admiration to shock. Many praised the wives for their boldness, interpreting the wedding as a moment of female empowerment within a polygamist family. Others felt concern for Kody, debating the fairness and justification of his absence. Regardless of opinion, though, one fact was clear. The core four had asserted themselves in a way that could no longer be ignored. This takeover wasn't about just having control because being in charge is good. It was an orderly process of ensuring wives' voices, their wants, and their views were uplifted and heard. So what the Brown family had a very traditional structure, with Kody at the middle of the circle, making most of the key decisions. It had grown into the wife-centered model where wives held authority in decisions involving family matters. The wedding showed that this pattern was set, and wives were ready to take over regarding family decisions from that point on. Equally interesting was the psychological dynamic of power played out in the process. In polygamist families, authority is a delicate dance among tradition, hierarchy, and autonomy. The core four's rise epitomizes a strategic shifting of power, from one single patriarch to a web-like network of wives who make decisions in concert, support each other, and act in block. This is a very quiet revolution, a deep change because influence does not necessarily imply some sort of confrontation, but simply alignment, strategy, and mutual support. Even the wedding guests could feel the change. Long-standing family members and intimate friends alike watched how these wives related to, coordinated with, and orchestrated the less-than-smooth unfolding of events. They were running the show, not just along for the ride in Kody's world. Dominance from the core four was unspoken but unequivocal. This was no temporary adjustment, but was instead the long-term reconfiguration of family dynamics. The wedding also brought up many questions about Kody's future role within the family. Whereas he has traditionally been the center, the core four's influence now challenges him to accept a new reality. Will he move into a more collaborative leadership position? Or will he try to reassert his authority in future family events? The wedding could mark the beginning of a redefined relationship between the patriarch and his wives, one based on mutual respect, autonomy, and negotiation, rather than one based on the husband's unilateral control. And so, fans immediately parsed the meaning. Social media posts called out how strategically aligned the core four seemed to be, in not only orchestrating such an enormous family undertaking, but also doing so with minimal conflict. For some, the wedding represented a case study in leadership, negotiation, and women's empowerment within a singular, familial framework. The subtlety of their approach, asserting influence without overt confrontation, showed a sophistication in both an understanding of family dynamics and public perception. But more importantly, the rise of the core four is not just a personal victory for the wives themselves. It's a narrative course correction for the show. Sister Wives has always been built around Kody as the patriarch, but the wedding hammered home that the real drama, strategy, and clout these days are on the wives' side. It's probably going to be influential in how future episodes, storylines, and viewer engagement will be pitched, since the family's at an interesting moment of shifting hierarchies, changing relationships, and new forms of authority. In the end, Janelle Brown's wedding did more than just surprise fans with Kody's absence. It revealed the takeover of the core four. United, strategic, and in control, it marked a new period in the Brown family. The well-planned, subtly choreographed, and strong delivery was proof that wives are no longer just wives. They are leaders. To fans, this is going to be more than a plot twist, but a defining moment in the Brown family's evolution. The core four now prove unstoppable, rearranging intra-family dynamics, defying conventional authority, and reimagining leadership structures within the polygamist home. Janelle's marriage was more than just an occasion. It was a very public, very strategic announcement. The wives are of one mind. They are empowered, and they are ready to take on their future. When the last guest was gone, and the cameras stopped rolling, it was clear. The era of Kody-centered authority has moved over, and the reins are with the core four. Fans will be debating, dissecting, and discussing this shocking metamorphosis for years to come. And they will continue to know one thing for sure. The Brown family is changed forever. And neither the Brown family nor the dynamics of sister wives will ever be seen in quite the same light again. As the fans were treated to the images of a loving wedding ceremony filled with happiness, flowers, and merriment, things were way more complicated and more eventful in reality. As all fans of sister wives are well aware, nothing in the lives of these families is ever simple, which was certainly true in Janelle's wedding, which took place off-camera in ways that provided plenty of tension, politics, and emotion in equal proportions. Kody's attendance, or lack thereof, was the most apparent thing about the drama, but it is only the tip of the iceberg. Insiders have revealed that before the wedding, there were disagreements, careful negotiation, and strategic maneuvering, all involved in planning the wedding itself. The core four, Robin, Christine, Mary, and Janelle, were in charge of nearly all aspects of the wedding, right from the wedding seating and flowers, to planning the timing and coordinating the family's attendance at the wedding itself. The degree of control, which is understandable considering it is a large event, marked the beginning of the changing balance of power from Kody to the wives. The emotional undertones that went on behind the scenes included tension, where the camera recorded the radiant smile on Janelle's face and the beautiful ceremony. The team behind the scenes has observed that Kody was frustrated, disappointed, and possibly left out. The role that Kody was normally used to playing in the past, that is, the central role in all family occasions, he was now left with a role that saw his influence deliberately diminished. In terms of the core four, this was a moment of both empowerment and anxiety. The coordination of a wedding is no small feat, but doing so within a family structure is a challenge. Robin, as strategic coordinator, worked to overcome last-minute problems. It's a huge coordination effort to make sure everything goes smoothly. Christine, as social coordinator, worked to keep the other attendees satisfied. I wanted to make sure that all of the family was taken care of, but a very controlled way. Mary, who was a bit quieter, moved to take a strong position, advising others where necessary. It's big decisions, guiding. I give a lot of input. And then, of course, there was Janelle. I'm so happy, you know. But there's still a thought process. I know how the power structure works in our family. This drama played out in even the smallest details that might otherwise be ignored in a massive event like a ceremony of this magnitude. Details like family photo displays and kids sitting areas took on great importance. For instance, the wives made sure that their togetherness was visible to everyone as they stood together at strategic points of the ceremony. Meanwhile, Kody's patriarchal position took a back seat in a display of the dynamics that were beginning to change. One of these is that guests felt an undertone of tension emanating. Close friends and relatives also were aware of how the core four communicated with each other through subtle glances and implicit decisions, without necessarily involving Kody. Although the event went as it is supposed to, in a television coverage of a wedding, it was also incumbent to accept that the wives were in charge. Social media responses continued to intensify the behind-the-scenes soap opera. Videos from the wedding began to spread as fans picked apart the subtle body language between Kody and the other four wives. Tweets hypothesized the meaning behind Kody's absence, while others complimented the planning of his wives. The memes, posts, and theories went from what could simply have been a family gathering to a momentous occasion observed in real time by the culture. Due to the strategic planning and family dynamic involved in this particular wedding. However, aside from the response from the fans, another aspect that the backroom dramatized is the emotional work that comes with polygamous family dynamics. The polygamous wives have no choice but to navigate their relationships and ensure harmony among the patriarch and themselves. This is especially the case when it comes to this particular wedding that took place. The core four had no choice but to carry out this wedding seamlessly, despite the emotions that were apparently at play on set. For Kody, this event has been a very personal one. There has been a lot of conflicting emotion, hurt, and a knowledge of wanting to be there for Janelle's happiness. Generally, wedding days are a time of great satisfaction for patriarch figures. But Kody has been confronted with the challenge of watching a period of transition from a position of absence, something he has struggled with, but has not been evident from a TV perspective. The dynamic of public display and private emotions became even more complex with the addition of cameras. Sister Wives is reality television, which means that everything is lived and acted out at the same time. The wives of Kody Brown understood that their every move was being recorded, dissected, and later shared with millions of viewers. It is not only important to consider the emotions at stake, but also how the event is to be documented, from the perfect angles to the absence of strain between Kody and the core four, despite the tension that is definitely apparent. The reality TV show drama brought to light the varying leadership styles of the core four women. Robin is a planner and negotiator. Christine is a charmer and persuader. Mary has transitioned into a reserve and assertive leader, and Janelle uses her emotional intelligence and independence. The quartet complements each other, offering synergy to counterbalance their respective weaknesses and deal with the complexities of living in a plural family. The marriage ceremony revealed that the synergy of the quartet is now up and running and able to handle the realities of plural family gatherings. Dans la mise en scène de la cérémonie de mariage, il est également possible de percevoir cet esprit de succession et d'image. Les femmes comptaient bien sterling que la scène familiale allait être inspectée et comment laisseraient des traces les actions qu'elles allaient prendre. Tout interactif, sourire, couette de conseil, assurance de siège étaient stratégiques et renforçaient la Core Four dans la défense de leur unité, leurs compétences et leur puissance. Dans la mise en scène arrière, il ne s'agissait donc pas seulement de contrôler la cérémonie, mais de dresser la façade familiale selon la nouvelle stratégie. Moreover, the wedding episodes showcased the resilience of the wives emotionally. They handle their own emotions, their family ties, as well as media attention, all at once. Janelle's strength in keeping her cool while taking on a leadership position is praiseworthy specifically. For viewers, this is important because it shows, with this behind-the-scenes perspective, that not only is there a structural change happening in their family, but there is also an emotional change where these wives learn to start taking control and finding their identity in this family system. As the event ended and the festivities transitioned to the reception, management of events behind the scenes continued to be essential. The Core Four handled the organization of speeches to ensure a flawless transition from one activity to another. Guests realized how organized and in sync the wives of the wives appeared to be. A timberline could be sensed between the family relationships. The drama that occurred backstage also involved relations extended from the Core Four group. The extended family, friends, and even the children were affected by the change in power relations. Such decisions as whom to sit with and where, how relations were handled, and what traditions to focus on involved thoughtful consideration and planning. Although the decisions appeared minute, they had significant psychological impacts that affected relations as well as brought about the dominance by the Core Four group. Ultimately, it is the drama that is being presented behind the scenes of Janelle's marriage that shows the deeper truth that the Browns are a family in which the ideas of authority, power, and family dynamics are fluid. Kody's lack of presence was a visible part of this, but the planning and execution put forth by the Core Four women showed the real change was taking place elsewhere. This change that is taking place in the family isn't disorganized. It's a carefully planned and empowering change for the women. From this perspective, it is important to realize that this is an aspect of the story that not only adds depth for those who are watching, but also goes to show that what is visible on television is not all that is going on. This is because all that is happening on television is also about dealing with all sorts of struggles and maneuvering. Conclusion: while the exterior message that is conveyed is that of a wedding full of happiness and celebrations, the actual events that happened behind the scenes reveal something much different. A story that is filled with intensity and change as Kody is absent and the Core Four work as a team towards a necessary change within the family dynamics that is reaching a pivotal moment within the Browning family's history that not only marked an important milestone within Janelle's personal life, but also revealed the change that is taking place within the dynamics that control the family leadership position. The behind-the-scenes soap opera will go on to ensure fan activity, talking about and thinking about this particular incident for months to come, or even longer, as it marks a pivotal point in the story of Sister Wives. This was far more than a wedding. It marked a statement of independence and cooperation, and the complicated and often unseen elements at play within the lives of this very unusual family. The wedding of Janelle Brown was far from the private celebration that it seemed to be, but rather a turning point for the Brown family and the series Sister Wives. While the beautiful setting, the emotional exchange of vows, and the fancy attire may have been intriguing elements to focus on, the true dynamic that the wedding revealed is that the absence of Kody Brown and the rise of the Core Four signal a new beginning that will change the face of the series for years to come. Kody Brown had been the patriarch for decades, with the family centered around him. Kody made all important decisions, coordinated all households, and was the key personality in the narrative of the series. His daughter Janelle's wedding exposed the fact that the patriarchal system is no longer ironclad. The core four, Robin, Christine, Mary, and now Janelle Brown, have started exerting influence in order to make important decisions and control events in the family. And the final statement of this growing dominance was the wedding. Kody's absence is also symbolic in several ways. It symbolically represents an affront to Kody's authority, and is also set to make him realize that the family is growing in a way that does not require his daily supervision. The traditional family patriarchy has had to undergo some kind of transformation, and this is because Kody is no longer the sole authority and figure to be consulted on matters concerning the family. This is obviously going to impact all spheres of family life. For the core four, the wedding ceremony represented a declaration of unity, freedom, and strength. Each wife was essential in the planning process, which showed them capable of handling all the logistical, interpersonal, and publicity aspects related to the arrangement. The combined effort of planning, negotiating, and assertive participation by Robin, Christine, Mary, and Janelle presented a collective strength in which the synergy is evident, signifying the strength of all the wives combined. The sisterhood is no longer merely a collective support system, but rather a functional entity that can handle all the aspects associated with running the household without needing input from Kody. The effects of such a shift in power do not only end within a family setting. For viewers, there is a shift in the story of sister wives. The series has for a long time focused on Kody as the central character of interest, with appearances of the wives only when it is necessary to consult with them on family decisions. The wedding of Janelle presents a shift from such a story by offering a clear indication of the actual power at play being exercised by the wives. The recognition of the family on social media adds to the overall cultural significance of the change that is happening. The core four dominating storyline and observations about Kody not being present at his daughter's wedding highlighted how much the dynamic of the family is about to change. While opinions on the situation may differ, one thing is sure: the dynamic has shifted for good, and the family balance of power is no longer the same. The wedding also gives light to the fact that Kody's position within the family will be in question in the future. Would he try to regain control, or will he be open to a collaborative process? Only time will tell. But what is clear is that the wives are now ready to continue to be in a position of power within the family. This is something that will come to light in everything from holiday celebrations to birthdays and even the addition of children within the family. In the case of Janelle, the wedding became her personal win. First, she showed that she is able to celebrate her love, her independence, and her control during the celebration, despite the patriarchal norms that she had experienced within her family all her life. Her desire to go ahead with the celebration without the presence of Kody is not only her personal will, but her declaration to the world that she is no longer the wife of Kody, but an individual with the leadership to influence the core four members. What this trend holds in terms of broader implications for the family's offspring is a serious consideration as well. Children exposed to the situation at the Brown household can attest to the fact that they get to experience the phenomenon of female empowerment and partnership in real life. They get to realize that the obligation of leadership does not lie exclusively within the realm of patriarchal control, and that a sharing of leadership decisions among household members is possible. Production-wise, the wedding and its after-effects are a goldmine for sister wives. The key to any successful reality show is conflict, drama, and a strong character development process, and Janelle's wedding encompasses everything. The episode brings to fore the impact of Core 4 and Kody's absence, making it loads of fun to watch, discuss, and share. The changeover not only holds importance to sister wives, but is a crucial part of this show. Furthermore, the rise of Core 4 also symbolizes a shift in the overall cultural scenario that arises when discussing the relevance of polygamist families and the empowerment of women. Historically speaking, these families are seen to be patriarchal households wherein the women are expected to identify themselves with whatever the patriarch wishes. But the Browns' family dynamics are taking a different route altogether. Rather, the women are taking a stand and realizing that their power can also be wielded together. Moving ahead, the dynamic between the family members is bound to become more complicated. The various family meetings, be it a casual gathering or a grand celebration, will reflect the dynamic between Kody and his wives, who will continue to work together to influence him. Kody will have to walk a thin wire in his efforts to position himself, and the conflict between tradition and independence will continue to be the theme, giving the audience an interesting insight into the polygamous family. The wedding also created an index for perception. The fans began demanding that the wives feature prominently in influencing events within their families. This will not only improve their influence, but also create an index that indicates the upcoming events will be influenced by the tones set by the wife. The Core 4, from the lesson from Janelle's wedding, indicate that influence is both personal and performative, because it not only influences an individual, but also indicates how influence can influence other people. Further, the wedding ceremony illustrates and emphasizes the value of communication, planning, and oneness among the wives. The Core 4 are indeed exemplary in that they managed the event perfectly by working together while avoiding conflict on a large scale. Indeed, they are an example that power should not only be demonstrated through conflict, but by working together as well. The message is essential not only in the family, but also to those who are watching them. In terms of the long-term impact, the change brought to light by Janelle's wedding will likely impact the storylines in Sister Wives as follows. Though Kody will remain significant to these storylines, it is likely that there will increasingly be emphasis on their relationships and dynamics with and among each other, as well as their own personal growth. Janelle's wedding ceremony remains the defining point, which became the turning point where the dynamics of power and the internal structure of the family changed, where the power of the Core 4 became clear, and Kody's traditional values were challenged. The audience is now left with various questions and possibilities of what may happen in the coming seasons, such as what Kody's reaction would be, whether the wives would continue to gain power, and what may happen in the coming wedding ceremonies and holidays. What does seem clear, however, is the fact that the Brown family dynamic has forever shifted. The Core 4 have shown they can influence, coordinate, and lead, and the final proof of their dominion came at Janelle's wedding. The absence of Kody, though explosive, also reinforced the overall shift of the family from a patriarch-led family unit to a family of wives taking control and crafting their own family narrative. As the fans continue to discuss, debate, and analyze all of the action that went down at the wedding, there is certainly more drama and more to come in Sister Wives. The rise of the Core 4 is not merely an ephemeral moment, but indeed represents change that will affect all of the family's decisions for years to come. Fans have embarked on a whole new journey with this season of Sister Wives, and are in for some surprising twists and turns as these four continue to figure out this family dynamic and find themselves in this new situation with all of these people. In summary, the wedding in the episode was not a mere event of celebrating the union of Janelle and her brother, but a reinvention of what constitutes might and control as far as the family and relationship dynamics are concerned. There is a new breed of leadership in the Core 4 group, and Kody's position of authority has also come under threat. Components of their life that will continue to fascinate audiences can be seen in the upcoming episodes of the show. It's a relationship that will leave a lasting impact on the show, both in front of the camera and behind it. It presented the complexity, strategic planning, and depth of emotion involved in the polygamist family dynamic, showing how power can grow and how empowerment can be implemented in a unique family unit. It was indeed the moment the core four took center stage, changing the dynamic of sister wives in the process.